Did you ever expect that it was going to be this political? Because it seemed like if you look at just the things that I hear you talking about all the time, they're not necessarily political in nature, but everything now is political.
They've been politicized. But I would say, I mean, there's a conversation coming. And I have the sense that so first of all, I will say the last time I was on your program, the only time I was on before, I remember you asking me what I thought of the left, and I quipped, what left? I haven't seen them in who knows how long.
Yeah.
That turns out not to have been right. They exist. I mean, yes, I hadn't seen them. But one of the funny things about my trajectory is that having been, the experience was very much like being ejected from the left.
Yeah.
And I got ejected from the left, and a lot of people on the right embraced me, which was weird. And then, even weirder, was the discovery of all the other people who'd been ejected from the left. And so the point is, this is sort of a cryptic left.
You're talking to the right guy.
Exactly. Well, and so the point is the discovery that there are a lot of people who you might, if you just looked them up online, you would come to the wrong conclusion about where their sympathies lay. That's interesting. And I think the conversation between those of us who have been, catapulted out and those of us who have landed on the right is going to involve the recognition that, in fact, we are all suffering from a kind of political PTSD. And that, in fact, many people who are on the right are there because they've been traumatized by really low-quality, dangerous leftist thinking, but that does not make their right-of-center position natural. I'm not saying there are no natural positions over there, but many people who are there because they have run from things that they have heard on the left. And once we give up on the idea that anybody on the map today has the answer with respect to the policies that we are supposed to embrace, once we say, actually, everybody's policies are a failure. If we were to enact the libertarian program, it would fail for game theoretic reasons. If we were to enact the socialist program, it would fail for game theoretic reasons.
Same thing.
Right. So the point is, okay, fresh sheet of paper with respect to policy. Now there's a lot for us to talk about, starting from values. And there are a lot of people who, if you ask them to list their values apart from policy, would fall out on the left. So, wow, is it an interesting moment that conversation may be about to get started. And to be in a position to actually influence it, I must say, is pretty exciting.
That's also one of the,
No, go ahead.
You said something which I think can be misheard, and since you've had the experience coming off of the Young Turks, it's worth saying. The center-right is in some sense the blankest part of a non-blank canvas. And so the whole purpose of introducing the Thinquisition concept was to analogize the left with Spain and the center-right with Turkey and the expulsion of the Jews, and the idea being that like one of the things that I always want to come to your rescue about, and also push you a little bit on, is that there's this army of Twitter trolls that say, well, why won't Ruben criticize the right? And we've just never gone and done it. In part, the point is, if your heart is largely in making a better world and trying to be realistic about it, but recognizing that we have to change some things, and then you get kicked out of your home, the last thing you want to do is start criticizing the people who took you in during a really dangerous period. And so in part, I think you give the right a little bit of a pass, and I think more than I'm comfortable with.
Yeah.
Because you also have the twin problem of wanting to be decent to the fact that the people who have embraced, I've always struggled with Tucker Carlson. Last time I checked, I'm one of 100 people that he's following on Twitter. And he stepped up at a moment when other people would not. And so, it's this very violent shift in thinking that's just not comfortable. But the canvas is blank enough that we can leave the sword and the stone. Rather than saying the answer is capitalism, no, the answer is libertarianism, no, the answer is ending oppression, you can say, we don't actually have the answer. We don't know. And it's very important that the people who are certain be silent, because they are not the important people at this moment.
And that's basically everyone on cable news and everyone sort of...
Well, they all have their, we know, and they'll talk to you about it. I remember when I did the McNeil-Lehrer News Hour, they said, look, Eric, you have to be either for or against immigration. And I said, why? And they said, well, if you're for it, we'll get a guy who's against it. And if you're against it, we'll get a guy who's for it. But you can't be both for and against it. And they couldn't use anything from an hour-and-a-half interview they did with me, because I needed to be a widget in order to fit the pre-assigned format. This is where I started learning about fake news and why our world is constructed, because you construct the program before you meet the people. And so once you have the template, you have to shoehorn everybody into the template to produce that very consistent product. Think about, if you buy salami, that's a lot of different individual pigs, but it all tastes like salami. It's uniformized, and that's what we're dealing with. And our group that's discussing these issues is anything but uniform, and everybody's split. Like, just exploring this Ben Shapiro acting as the atheist, that turns out to be, really quite correct. And the fact that Jordan and Ben both are up for using sensitive pronouns, but they were just hiding that for some reason. This is a really rich area, and that richness is sort of anathema to the machine that just needs a dependable product and is going to grind us into some uniform Soylent Green to be distributed to the world.